If you want to stick some swords up some trolls' butts, I've got some amazing weapons in the DLC for you today. Some insane blood loss build-up weapons, some cool intelligence and faith weapons, plus a sword that has multiple variants. Let's go! Let me know which of these is your favorite in the comments. We'll start with the CurseBlade Cirque. Now, this is a backhand blade with blood loss build-up. As far as I know at the time of recording, this is the only backhand blade that has native blood loss build-up. Now, it also comes with a unique weapon skill called Deadly Dance, which will allow you to spin both of these backhands around in the air, and then you can follow up with like a drop kick animation after the fact, which you can combine this with all of those fantastic blood loss build-up talismans and buffs, plus all those successive attacks, build-ups and buffs like the Rotten Wind Insignia and Millicent's Prosthetic and all that good stuff. I actually made a build specifically using this backhand blade that went out yesterday. I'll link that here if you want more information and all that good stuff about this weapon. So I'll link that here. But if you want to grab this weapon, it comes from any of the CurseBlade enemies throughout the DLC. The best one to farm is the one right near where you spawn at the start of the DLC. Essentially, all you got to do here is make sure you've got enough item discovery to increase your chances of this dropping, and then you can farm it from the start of the DLC. It took me a little bit to farm this guy, maybe about half an hour, but make sure you get that item discovery up and it should be okay for you. The next one is potentially the highest blood loss build-up weapon in the game right now. That's probably going to get a slight nerf, but we will see. That's the Bloodfiend's arm. This is a colossal weapon with just absolutely insane blood loss build-up. It doesn't come with it natively, which is quite interesting. Now, it has a unique R2 animation that does like blood loss build-up. So the armament is capable of spraying blood stored within when executing a strong attack. Now, because you can change the Ash of War on this, which I highly recommend you do from Endure, you could put anything on it, say Savage Iron Claws like I have in this video, and then you make it a blood type Ash of War to get that blood loss build-up, which gives you 220 build-up just natively now on the weapon, and then you can just follow up using that heavy attack, and after like 1 on most enemies, sometimes 2 on like bosses, you'll get that blood loss build up just on the enemy. So you'll get like the amazing damage you get from using a colossal weapon, which always have high attack damage, plus the blood loss build up status effect triggering very quickly on those enemies. And you can just see how easy it is to trigger that and how easy this weapon is. If you have an arcane build, you'll definitely want to be trying out this weapon for that insane amount of blood loss build up. And then you've obviously got all those talismans and equipment that buff your blood loss, etc. when it's like in vicinity and all that stuff. So it just has a lot of synergies natively on it, and all you got to do is just use a heavy attack and you're essentially laughing. Now, in order to get this, you do need to farm it as well, but you farm it from like those ogre dudes, like the Bloodfiend guys that are around the game. The best place to farm them are the Prospect Town. This is to the southwest-ish of the main gate site cross that you'll actually be able to travel down here by following a path and go to Prospect Town. There's plenty of these around there that you can farm. There's actually 2 weapons they drop here. They do drop a fork as well. The arm is actually better based on just what I've been playing around with, but it's a really incredible weapon that you should definitely be using. The Starline Sword is next. This is one of my new favorite weapons. It's a physical and magic katana. I did actually make a build for this one as well, which is actually out on the channel right now if you want to go and learn more about this weapon. But to TLDR it, it's a fantastic physical and magic weapon with a unique weapon skill called Onsi's Line of Stars, which is similar to, say, a Rivers of Blood, except it's magic based. Now you get an extra swing after those first couple, and then if you use it one last time, you sort of do like a teleport in the air and then slam yourself down, and that last attack does the most damage out of all of them. So perfect to combo with like any, intelligence, magic build, say if you wanted to run Magic Scorpion Charm or any of those successive attacks buffs as well, because of those quick hitters that you're getting off with these weapon. Really solid weapon that does take a little bit to get to, but you don't really need to defeat any hard bosses in order to get to it. Essentially here, you've got to go to the Cerulean Coast. Now, in order to get there, if you start at the Castle Front Ruins and then follow this path that I am showing here, and you hit this fork in the road, you'll wing a left and then head down into this poison swamp. You'll then need to go through this cave and there's a side of grace here you can grab as well. On the other side of the cave, there is a platforming puzzle that you'll essentially need to pass through on Torrent and then follow that path all the way down to the river downstream. Hug the right wall as you continue on the path and see the Wicker Man, just avoid his attacks and follow that wall along until you see a gap in the wall that will take you through to the Cerulean coast. From here, you'll then need to follow this path and avoid all of the attacks that are coming towards you. Essentially, again, hugging towards the right. And eventually you'll come out where you'll be able to fight a demi-queen called Queen Mariga, not Marika, and you'll be able to defeat them pretty easy as you would have throughout the base game, and you'll get the Starline Sword. The Black Steel Twinblade is next. Now this weapon is a pretty standard twin blade in terms of its physical damage. It does have a little bit of holy damage, not much, but a little bit. Now it does come with Spinning Slash, which is sort of like fine. It's nothing really to, go crazy about. What I do actually like about this weapon is when you combine it with the aspect of the wings, Ash of War, which when you use with a twin blade, you get a different animation compared to the typical thrusting animation you get with normal weapons. That's what I really like about this weapon, plus it fits perfectly into the aesthetic. It's actually the weapon that the person that drops the Ash of War is using, so we can actually, use this on themselves. Now, when you apply like a sacred Ash of War, it does boost up the holy damage on this weapon significantly as well, so you can get additional benefits from that, say either, using like Sacred Sword or just even using the aspects of the wings and putting it as a sacred on it as well, which you definitely can do. And I just like this weapon because it's a twin blade. It's one of the new twin blades, and you can actually use it specifically with the Ash of War that it's supposed to come to. So I just wanted to mention that here, as if you're looking for, the weapon that they are actually using there. Now, if you want to grab this, it comes from a Black Knight located southwest of the Shadow Keep in the Skardu Atlas area. I did die to the Mesmer soldiers in this footage, but that is actually where you get the twin blade from if you want to go and grab this bad boy. Next is the Ancient Meteoric or Greatsword, a sword that I originally wasn't particularly a fan of until Fel's Impurator suggested in the comments of one of my other videos to try out this Greatsword, and I did, and they're right. It is stupid strong. The weapon skill is what really stands out here. Now, you cover like a nice amount of gap with the initial attack, like you thrust forward and then you hit that button again and you get a massive explosion of like white light from this. You've also got some magic damage here, and it's a strength and arcane weapon, which is pretty rare. Typically they don't stack with strength, and just being a colossal sword, you've got those massive poise damage that you can build as well, but you don't really need to because of the amount of damage that white light charge does on its own. Now, if you want to get this weapon as well, you need to go to the Ruined Forge Starfall Pass, which is in the Skardu Atlas as well. Now, in the forge at the very end of that, when you click on the altar, you will get this fantastic greatsword. Dryleaf Arts is next. I only wanted to call this one out because it does require a specific thing you have to do in order to get it, just in case people haven't figured that out. Now, I'm not particularly a fan of the hand-to-hands yet. I haven't found a build that I really like. I might do one eventually, but essentially this is a hand-to-hand with Palm Blast. Now, Palm Blast, if you charge it up, does actually knock enemies back, which is really quite nice. And because you can technically change the Ash of War here, what I did is add like Bloodlust build up to this weapon because of its fast attack combo. So I get a little bit of Bloodlust build up on that, a little bit extra damage. Now, in order to get this, you need to defeat Dryleaf Dane, where you find him at the Skardu Atlas. In order to actually defeat him, you'll need to use the May the Best Win emote in front of him. And in order to get that emote, you'll actually need to go to Mikkela's Cross just after Castle Ensitz. You've probably already clicked on it without even realizing. You get a letter there that points you in his direction, and then you need to use this gesture next to him. You will then trigger the boss fight, and you will be able to beat him and get the arts. Death Knight's Twin Axes is the next one on the list. Now, the axes here is definitely a standout because it is twinned, so you get 2 for the price of 1, which is plenty of these in the DLC, which is actually quite nice. This is a physical and lightning weapon, so you get lightning damage on top of that. Now, it has a unique Ash of War, which is an extension of the Blink Bolt Ash of War. So you get that initial like burst forward of lightning like you typically do, but if you follow up with a strong attack, you do a lightning charge spinning slash, which is like quite strong. I wouldn't say it's like overpowered necessarily. It does do a solid amount of stagger and damage, but I also like the fact that it is a gap closer, so you can sort of create that distance and then zoom in with that first attack and then follow up with that follow-up. And it is a lightning weapon here as well, which is quite unique for axes, and the damage numbers are pretty solid. Now this is all you need to do for this one, is defeat the actual Death Knight themselves. Now they are in the Fog Rift Catacombs. They will use this weapon against you, and you just need to defeat them at the end of the Fog Rift Catacombs, and you'll get the Death Knight twin axes for yourself. I love how Rivers of Blood got nerfed, and then we get a DLC that basically adds Rivers of Blood again, but it's a great katana this time, except this time you don't get extra blood loss on the weapon skill, which is called Weed Cutter for Rakshasa's Great Katana. Now this is a great katana that only does physical damage. It has blood loss build up, and the Weed Cutter is the Ash of War here, where the additional imports will just keep the effect going, where essentially you just do like a double slash animation. You can keep this going until you run out of stamina. What's unique about this weapon as well is it has this like extra passive that you are less likely to be staggered from counter attacks, but you also take increased damage. So you can continually essentially spam this attack or any of the normal attacks on top of that by that extra poise that this weapon essentially gives you. Now, on top of that, you get her armor set at the same time, which does further buff your attack power at the risk of taking increased damage as well if you wanted to wear this entire set. But it is a fantastic, great katana in its own right. If you're looking for something to replace your Rivers of Blood and try one of the new weapons, this is probably the one that I would grab. Now this drops from Rakshasa herself in the Eastern Nameless Mausoleum. Now in yesterday's armor video, I did cover exactly how to get down to the castle watering hole and get down to this location. But essentially, starting from the Recluse River downstream, you'll need to climb down the grave sites there, follow it all the way around towards the waterfalls. Spin around to the other side. And you'll find the Nameless Mausoleum there where you'll be able to defeat Rakshasa. The last one I have for you today is a 3-parter. It's technically 2 weapons once you have upgraded it. That's the Sword of Darkness and the Sword of Light. Starting with the Sword of Darkness here, essentially what this weapon is it's just a standard straight sword that does physical and holy damage, so it scales with faith. Now, what's unique about this is you'll get the darkness skill where you'll thrust it in the air and do like this cloud wave of darkness around you that not only does really solid damage, it also adds holy damage negation to the target, so they will take more holy damage, which is really good because this weapon does holy damage, right? And then you can spam the Ash of War and get more damage out of that. Now, in order to get this, you will first need to get the Stone Sheathed Sword, which comes from the Fog Rift Catacombs. So you want to head back there, and if you remember that final room where you've got that third spike trap that drops down, and there is the Death Sorcerer that spams spells at you from the other side, you'll need to stand where that Death Sorcerer is. There'll be a little like platform inside the spiked pillory thing that you can jump on. This will take you up to the next level where we picked up an Ash of War here in one of my other videos, but now you'll just need to jump on top of the spiked platform and follow it all the way down to the other side, and then wing a right, and there'll be an altar here where you'll get the Stone Sheathed Sword. Next, you will need to go to the ruins of Untei, but before that, you will need a hefty furnace pot, which you'll need to go to the rundown Traveler's Rest and grab the cookbook there, so you'll actually be able to craft this, and then you'll need to make a hefty furnace pot, because when you get to the ruins of Untei, you'll notice there is one of the giant furnace golems blocking the entrance to something here. Now, in order to open that, you'll need to climb to the left of him on top of these buildings. And then throw a furnace pot into his center to activate the furnace golem. He'll then stand up and you'll be able to get into the church behind him. There is a incantation in the church as well, but the other altar for the darkness is actually located there. You'll then be able to click it and turn it into the Sword of Darkness. The Sword of Light is a little bit harder to get to, and it's also not as strong as the Sword of Darkness in my opinion. So with the Sword of Light, all of its damage numbers and stuff are the same, and if you do upgrade one and then you change its type, by the way, if you go back to any of these altars, you can change it between Darkness or Light, vice versa. Now, as the Sword of Light, it will use the weapon skill Light, which will thrust the weapon back in the air again, but have beams of light rather than darkness that shoot out. The difference here is that while the attacks seem very similar, these beams of light are individual damage hits, and they don't deal as much damage as the single darkness wave does. So if you notice with the Sword of Darkness and Darkness, as soon as it hits the enemy, it does like X amount of damage, right? 2,500, whatever it might be. With the Sword of Light, each individual beam is part of that same damage. So you can hit an enemy multiple times with the beam, but it's not as reliable as the amount of damage that comes from Darkness, which is just that massive wave around you. I tried to tinker with this with sticking it up the troll's butt, like I mentioned in the intro, and the purpose of that was to see if like you can get more of these waves to hit at once on these larger enemies that have like bigger hitboxes. And while it does seem to be the fact, it doesn't deal as much damage, and you can very clearly see that like the Sword of Darkness is definitely the better option right now. I think that it's just to do with the inconsistency of the way the waves come out. Like it's still a good sword if you wanted to say be some sort of light paladin, something like that, but the Sword of Darkness is definitely the stronger variant. To get the Sword of Light, you'll need to go to the ancient ruins of I'm probably saying that terribly wrong. The ancient ruins of But in order to get to these ancient ruins, you do need to head west from the Shadow Keep. You'll be able to follow a pathway here that'll lead you to the ancient ruins, and then at the very back of the ancient ruins there, you will find a ancient ruins site west. And so we're starting from that location here, and you can follow the pathway that will lead you sort of through these buildings, past like some scarlet rot. And then you find that there's like a pathway to a tower that's actually broken. There's an invisible walkway here that if you just walk from this location and walk immediately straight, you'll be able to walk to where the altar is and turn it into the Sword of Light. But let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Any good weapons I have missed, we might do another one of these videos with some more of these fantastic weapons in the DLC. But let me know your thoughts in the comments. Thank you guys for watching this video till the end. Thank you to our members for supporting the channel. My name is Norza. I hope you have a great day.